Hi, and welcome to the Unfertile to Unfiltered podcast, a space where we talk honestly about infertility, motherhood, and the wild, beautiful, heartbreaking, and hilarious journey of being a woman.
We're your hosts, Simona
and Vicki,
two friends who have walked through IVF, loss, exhaustion, joy, and everything in between.
We started this podcast because we know what it feels like to search for stories that sound like yours and come up empty. We wanted to create the kind of space we needed, one where nothing is off limits and no experience is ever too messy to talk about.
You'll hear us talk about the parts no one warns you about, the hormone shots, the baby showers after miscarriage, feeling lost in motherhood, and trying to remember who you are underneath it all.
We'll also bring on guests, experts, moms, and women with stories you won't forget to help all of us feel a little more seen and a little less alone.
This is a space for honesty, for healing, and for humor, because if we don't laugh through this stuff sometimes, we might cry forever.
So grab your cup of something, coffee, wine, your third reheated tea, and settle in.
This is Unfertile to Unfiltered, and we are so glad that you're here.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to episode 5 of Unfertile to Unfiltered. I am your host, Vicki, and we also have
Simona.
Yes, there we go. And we are here today. Let me tell you, we were just talking about how we are proud of ourselves that we're actually recording a little bit earlier, not later, for once.
Yes.
And we are both listen, people, we are navigating this from different states. Like, this is...
Yep. It is before 9 p.m. and we are doing it.
It is true. You gotta give your ladies some credit here. We really pulled this together. We have pulled this together.
My kids may not be asleep, but that's all right. We're doing it.
My goodness. Let me tell you, I was like, it's sleepy time to my daughter, basically. I was like, we gotta wrap it up, girl. We gotta
get this going.
Get this going. So, in true fashion, here we are, and we're joking, and we're all light and fun, and yet our topic is
pretty serious.
It's serious, right? It's not like so light. It's not necessarily, clearly not fun. But today we're talking about grief, and there's so many different layers. You know, Simone and I were just chatting about this before recording about how there's just so many different layers to grief, and you and I have experienced, I think, a lot of different layers of grief. Would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. In many different ways too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think from like loss, and I definitely want to get your like definition around it, Simona, but like for me, grief is not just like the physical loss of someone, right? It's also the emotional loss. Like, and I don't think I ever truly understood or grasped that until I got older, that like you can lose even just those relationships, and it can feel like a death or a loss of someone in your life, right? Like as if, you know, something had happened. And so I think for me, I now start to kind of look at it as like, was it a physical loss or was it the emotional?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I feel like I felt the same way. Like I thought grief when we were younger, it was when someone passed away, right?
Yeah.
And then as we grew up and, you know, went through lots of struggles, infertility, that made me realize like, oh, there is other types of grief and other ways to define grief. That emotional piece, the physical piece, the mental piece, all of it. Yeah, it is definitely broader than I thought than when we were younger, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. When I think of grief now, right, I look a lot at the different stages of grief, right? And so we were chatting about this and we were talking about how, you know, we've always kind of known it as the 5 stages, but that there's 7 stages. And so just to kind of highlight those a little bit, do you want to share with our beautiful people?
Sure, absolutely. So typically, and I'm sure if you are familiar with grief, you will nod your head as I state like the 5 stages. So typically there's 5, but as we looked before we started this episode, there are also a couple more stages of grief. So the first one is denial, and this can't be happening, you know, that sort of thought process in your head. Stage 2 is anger. Why did this happen? Who's to blame? Stage 3, bargaining. You're thinking, what if this happened? Or if only I had done X, Y, and Z. Which, as I'm thinking out loud, like infertility, hands down, those questions definitely came through.
Sure.
Stage 4, depression. For example, like this hurts so much. This hurts too much. Such a deep, deep sadness. Stage 5 is then acceptance and coming to the realization that, okay, I'm at peace with what happened. And then the 2 factors that have been added in over time, shock and testing. And maybe you can explain testing a little more, but of course, shock, like you can't believe what's happened. I feel like that can really kind of go along with denial too. But testing, I feel like you're kind of, what do you think? What do you think testing could be?
So I think that that can really vary from person to person, right? You know what I mean? I think that um, it's really where people explore a lot of different ways to like cope or navigate these bigger emotions, right? So
Okay.
like often trying like different strategies or support systems to rebuild their lives. And what I mean by that as well is like it's not always healthy, right? Like people can test or navigate testing in the grief journey in maladaptive ways too, right? Like that's why sometimes people will
Okay.
come to therapy because they're like, hey, I'm turning towards unhealthy coping mechanisms or strategies to
Mm-hmm.
help me resolve or figure out some of these emotions or this confusion or these thoughts that I'm having in my grief journey, right? And so
Yeah.
it's really about like exploring, I think that not I think it's about exploring the different coping strategies or support systems. So testing those, seeing like who is there for me, who,
Ah,
you know,
okay.
what works for me.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah. Which
It's
like
all important.
it's all important and it's not linear, and that's something that I think is really
Yeah,
important for people to hear. It's not
for
linear,
sure.
you know. It doesn't just start in the same way that Simona had just shared, where it's like, oh, you go
Mm-hmm.
through all of these direct stages 1 through 7, and it looks
Yep.
exactly like that. You can, I always say, like, grief is a big game of ping pong, right? And you are going back and forth, not necessarily knowing day to day what it's going to look like for you. And it's right, it's very dependent on, was it a physical loss? Was it an emotional loss? And for some people, it doesn't matter whether it's physical
Right.
or emotional. It's just, it's the ping pong of our emotions.
Mm-hmm. And like what you said, like it's not linear. It made me think too of society and like expectations that they have with when something happens, whether it's the loss of a family member or a pet or infertility. I feel
Sure.
like people have these expectations of
Yeah.
specifically to like a timeline, right? Like, oh, it's been a year, they should be over it by now. Or even like, oh, it's been a few weeks since her loss, whether it was a miscarriage or, failed embryo transfer or anything else. There's like certain time frames that
Yeah.
people have in their minds, right?
Yes.
And that's like, that is super hard. And I think that's another thing that needs to change too. Like just be in normal conversation that everybody grieves differently. Everybody
Yeah.
some people might take a lot longer to process things. And I never want to say like you're never over something, right?
Yeah.
It's you learn to live with that.
Yeah,
And right, and
absolutely.
that's definitely something I didn't realize until later on in life too,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. I mean, when I look at, I mean, so obviously, and I feel like we mentioned it briefly, maybe in the first episode, but like our paths, yours and mine, have been very parallel at times. And
Yeah.
so we both had lost our fathers
Hmm.
basically within a year of one another. I mean, a little bit
Yeah.
less, I think it was. My dad was in
Hmm.
2019, yours was in
2020.
2020.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I think about, and that was probably, I mean, I'd lost grandparents beforehand, and that was, of course,
Yeah.
very sad. But I think that it was, I always get that question as a therapist where they're like, you know, in therapy world, I'm Victoria to my clients, right? And so they'll be like, Victoria, like, what do you think is harder? Do you think it's harder to know that the person is sick and that they are, and you have time with them left, or for something suddenly to have happened? And you and I have both experienced each one differently, right? Like, my father
Yes.
passed very suddenly. Your father was sick with cancer,
Hmm.
pancreatic cancer, correct?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
And so we both had different spectrums
Yeah.
of of how we navigated the loss of our fathers, yet
Hmm.
obviously experienced these different stages of grief. So like when you think about even that specific loss, like right, let's talk about like physical loss first.
Yeah.
Where do you think in those stages, those seven stages or five, whichever ones you want to focus on, but like let's say the
Hmm.
seven, you hung out with a little bit more?
Hmm. Um, Definitely denial and depression, I would say. Yeah,
Mm,
for sure. It was the timing too was kind of just a whirlwind. So I feel like it made it a lot harder for me. I mean, he passed like 2 weeks before the COVID lockdown. So
okay.
just processing it all, you know, and I was also back and forth because he was really sick. So, and he was in Connecticut. So I would go back and forth from Jersey to Connecticut a lot. And so then when it happened, it was like, of course you're in shock because even though he was sick with pancreatic cancer, it was also really, really fast. By the time he was diagnosed to the time
Yeah.
he passed, it was, uh, just shy of 2 months, like barely even
Oh
two
my
months.
gosh.
So it was really quick. Um, so when it happened, you process it, you go and plan the funeral and you are busy doing all of that stuff. And then after all that's over, I feel like you're kind of in this state of, oh, like, oh my gosh, we just did all of this. Did that really happen? Like, that's that denial where it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. I can't believe I'm back at work a few days later after his funeral and, going back to teaching for a week. And then you hear of this illness that is going around. And, I was teaching in Jersey and you're hearing people are talking and saying, oh, in Pennsylvania, which is literally like 10 miles from where I worked, give or take, it's like, oh, schools are closing down. And I'm like, what? What is this? What's happening? And then in a week we're shut down. So then you're literally closed off to the world, still thinking about, I just lost my dad and now we're in a COVID lockdown and I was pregnant and freaking out that I was going to get sick and something was going to happen. So it was a lot of emotions all at once. So that's why I say I was definitely in a depression for a lot longer. I mean, longer compared to who? Really, we're not comparing, but I definitely sat in depression for a lot of it,
Well, and I
for
have to
sure.
imagine there was that loss piece too of like, here's your support system, right? That now you
Yeah.
physically can't even be around, right? So like you
Yes.
can't even be around your siblings at that time, right? You can't even be around
Hmm.
like the people who like, and I don't know about you, but like my sister was a pivotal person in really helping me through the loss
Of
of my
course.
father, right? Like,
Yeah.
yes, my husband, of course, but it's so different when it's your parent versus
Yes.
like your like father-in-law or mother-in-law or someone to that level.
Right. Right.
Um and like I think that that was the one thing, and it really, I think it's so sad. I feel I really do like for any of you who lost a family member during COVID, especially in 2020 and 2021, where funerals were not able to happen and wakes weren't able to happen.
Yes.
Like, I just want to say, like, my heart
Hmm.
goes out to you because I can't imagine not having
No.
been given that opportunity
Oh.
to be able to say the goodbyes the way that I needed to.
Hmm.
So I just want to let you all know that like my heart goes out to you because like I would see people literally socially distanced or very small groups at like, going by a cemetery and being like, at least they had that, but like, did they get all the opportunities that they had, So,
A hundred
um,
percent. Those thoughts literally ran through my mind, my brother, my sister's minds. Every second after this lockdown happened, I don't know what we would have done if we couldn't have been in that hospital with him. I mean, the three of us were there as soon as we were done with work. I would go up Thursday to Sunday, um, and not having that opportunity to say our goodbyes to him
yeah.
and have our moments. I don't I seriously I it's just so sad that that happened, that people couldn't have that opportunity to be with their loved ones during
Oh,
that time. That
absolutely.
is just, it's terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I think
Hmm.
for me, so you were reflecting on denial and depression, and I feel like those are truthfully like when I see people come in and they're talking to me about their grief journeys or what they're actively experiencing, I feel like those are very common, right? Like those are kind of the
Yeah.
top, I feel like common ones of like I'm in like I really am in denial that this occurred and like now what is depression? Depression is just a very fancy way of us saying like it is a deep sadness. It is a deep sadness and loss or no, I'm sorry, a deep sadness and just emotion of
Hmm.
like not being able to give that love to that person, right, anymore in that way.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that like I would probably say that for me, it was definitely denial for sure.
Yeah. Hmm.
Because it happened so suddenly. And I
Yeah.
think the way in which it happened so suddenly was just like, did that really truly occur? And I remember crying hysterically the night that I found out, we had already gone um, uh, to where he was living at the time. And, um, luckily, I will tell you, like, we were shielded in some ways. I know some people walk into really traumatic situations in which they see their, relative in those moments. And we were shielded because, you know, that he had already passed at that point. And so I think for us, there was like some like universe, God, higher power protection around me and my sister in that moment to say like,
Yeah.
okay, like you don't need to see him in this state, right?
Yeah.
But I think that for me, especially that night after crying hysterically, I remember I had cried so hard that my eyes ached so badly. I couldn't open them. Like I had to put like
Hmm.
a warm washcloth. They were so swollen.
Oh.
And I remember waking up in the morning thinking like, oh no, that actually must have been a dream. And I remember very vividly having to turn to my husband and say, did I dream that? Is this real? And starting to cry again because it was like all of a sudden it came back and it was like, oh, that was my reality.
Oh.
Um, the depression, I think it was more so like a an anxiety and if I can just add like my own little like
Yeah.
category to this, like I think it was an anxiety of like, what does this now mean, right? Like, what does this now mean to not have my father in this world with me, right? Like, what
Yeah.
does this now mean? And I guess that would also fall into the category of depression. But that was like something that was going through my mind. Like, I remember like very late phone calls with my sister, like, no matter what time she would pick up the phone, and I would just be like, what do we do with this now? Like, what, like, just asking those kind of questions because the idea of such a significant loss at like
Yeah.
an earlier time, right? Like, I was only maybe like 33, right? So you think 30, yeah, 30, 33, maybe 32, 33. I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, like, wait, what? Like, no longevity's in my dad's side of the family. Like,
Yeah.
what is this? And so that was like a really big thing that came up for me. And it was also, um, I will kind of uh, group together like the loss of my first pups, who I viewed as like mine and my husband's first
Hmm.
kids, Minnie and Max. Like, people are gonna like probably judge me so much when I say this, but like losing my father was awful and horrible. Losing Minnie and Max was
Yeah.
devastating. Um, because you know the
They
difference,
were
and
your
I remember
babies.
like talking about this in my own therapy, because most therapists, we have our own therapists. But I remember
Hmm.
talking about this and I was like, I feel awful saying that. I remember my therapist turning to me and saying, but why? They were physically around you. They were a part of your everyday life. You didn't live with your father anymore. You know,
Right.
you had you had developed this adult life um outside of just being like your, father's daughter. Like, you were like a quote unquote mom to Min and Max. Like, it was the feeling of like losing my first four kids, And I
Yeah.
just remember I was very pregnant with Paige. I was probably only 2 weeks away from giving birth to her. And losing Max to a very aggressive cancer was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And that I think I struggled with a lot of anger. So believe it or not, like I think because they're they were dogs and they were
Yeah.
so innocent, right? Like,
Hmm.
they never did any harm. They were the best little beings, like truly little angels sent to me in this life. I think that there was such anger
Yeah.
of like, why? Like, why is this happening when we finally get our storybook ending
Yes.
of finally being able to have our daughter in a couple of weeks and now having to navigate that? And it was
Right.
truly the one time, not maybe the one time, but one of maybe two times that I've ever truly seen my husband devastated. Um,
Yeah.
because that was like also his little buddy. I mean, Max was my little buddy too. I mean, he was everyone's little buddy. And then, when Minnie passed, like it also came on very suddenly. And um, that was like a year and a half later. So we had time with her and Paige. And like, honestly, I'm always so grateful. I remember my yoga instructor at the time was talking about like when I was going through any grief, whether it was with my dad or Minnie and Max. And she was like, but people and fur babies come into our lives to meet certain chapters, right? To like be a part of certain chapters of our lives and to be there for us in times. And like they already have like contracts made with our souls.
Hmm.
So like contracts between our souls and their souls,
Oh, I love
in
that.
which their time is set. And I don't know if that brings you any of you peace or if it makes you more upset, but like for me, that was very peace giving because I was just like,
Yeah.
they knew, even my dad knew that I was in good enough hands to like handle whatever was going to come next.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that. That's really that definitely brings peace. That soul, like you say that again, your contract with your soul.
Yeah, so it's like our souls with any other being, whether that's a fur baby, whether that's another human being, a creature, whatever it is, that those contracts are made before we are even like born, right? And so like
I love
Minnie and
that.
Max's souls, my dad's soul, those were all contracted with us, like, our souls, right? Even
Hmm.
in our friendship,
Yeah,
like we already have had these contracts. And I think that that speaks to like even emotional, right? Like it helped me
for sure.
reframe even emotional losses, like friendships that unfortunately due to the pandemic, right? Like, and
Yeah,
different maybe political or vaccine views or whatever it was, went
right.
separate ways, were so devastating and so hurtful, but I decided to apply that same perspective and say, okay, but then like those contracts for whatever time being right now, or maybe for the rest of our lives, are done. And
Mm-hmm.
like, that's
I
not a
agree.
negative, right? It served a purpose.
Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah. And I feel like I was just gonna go back for a second, like the timing too. I remember how devastating that was
Yeah.
for Minnie and Max. I mean,
Yes.
what was the time between losing them both, between Minnie and Max? How much time
So
between the
we lost
two?
Max 2 weeks before Paige was born. We lost Minnie when Paige was about a year and a half.
Yes, okay. Oh God. I feel like that timing is so hard and like I knew you talked about it before too, but like I feel like that losing Max 2 weeks before Paige was born is such a whirlwind of emotions
Yeah,
all at
for sure.
once. And you like you just think like, oh my gosh, why, how could this happen? Like, how
Yeah.
could you also, and I might bring in a little bit of faith here too, but you also like question like, God, what are you thinking? Why is this happening? You know,
Sure.
I mean, I went through that phase too, and maybe that's, let's say denial or, um, you know, I would say it's denial. This can't be happening.
Yeah.
Um, but I was thinking of timing too as you were talking about all this too. Like also when I lost my dad, or like right around the time he was diagnosed, that's when we received the news that we were finally pregnant. And it's like, oh my God, you you finally get this news. You're about to have Paige, and then you lose Max. I'm finally pregnant, and then I lose my dad. And it's like, what, you question everything, right?
Totally. Yeah.
But I think that's part of, again, the stages of grief, right? Like
Yeah.
you wonder why all of these things happen in this certain time frame, but just like you said, like souls and contracts, I feel like they're as as difficult as processing that and losing our dads and our fur babies. That is, I feel like there is a plan, and people might not agree with that, and that might be a hard pill to swallow. And if I were in the middle of my journey and somebody said that to me, I would want to punch him in the face. I feel like I
We're
feel
not
like
violent people,
it's
I swear.
we're not. I swear.
But
And
it,
this might
it
get a
is,
little
but I
bit
get
off
it.
topic, but I mean,
No, but I
yeah,
get it.
it took me a long, I mean,
Yeah.
this was 7 years ago that I was going through this. So here I am 7 years later saying this. So it takes a long time. I feel like now I'm, even just like a couple years ago, I'm in that acceptance part
Yes.
of grief.
Yes.
Not saying that it doesn't hit you at random moments, right? But, I'm at peace with what happened with in regards to my dad, but also, of course, infertility. Um, but like grief can hit you at any given moment. I mean, you're driving the car and a song plays, or you see something outside that triggers you, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Have you ever had that happen to you? Or like, can you remember a
Gosh.
moment
Hmm.
where that happened and it just triggers you and you think of whether it's Max or Minnie or it's your dad?
Yes. So believe it or not, so like our newer pup, right? We've had him for he's gonna be 3 in October. So we got him when he was 4 months.
Mm,
I feel like he's still like only a year old. He's such a little rascal. His name is Remy.
he's
If
so
you're one
cute.
of my clients listening, you're like, I know Remy because he loves to be in sessions and he just loves his people.
I
With
love
that
that.
being said, when he plays in a certain way, when he gives me certain eyes, it actually reminds me of Minnie and Max in a lot of ways. His
Oh my God.
mannerisms, how he can sometimes be, can remind me of them.
Oh,
Certain memories that I definitely have of like doing certain like ball games or, whatever it might be, like that will trigger me. For my dad, if any of you ever, if you're listening and like any of my family's listening, like my dad was like, all about Elvis. So like he was all about like other artists too, but like he loved Elvis. And so like every night actually to pay like homage to him, I think indirectly. And for, my daughter to know something about her, we used to call him Pop
yeah.
Pop. For
S-
her to know,
Wait, we called my dad Pop Pop too.
guys,
Did we know this?
no, we
Did
didn't
we?
know this. Guys,
Oh my God,
news
stop.
flash. This is what I'm talking about. And let me just tell you,
How crazy
Simona and I were
this.
not even like connected emotionally again at that time. This is how
No,
parallel our lives are.
stop it. Whoo, I just got the chills. I just got the chills. Telling you, our dads are watching us right now and they're thinking, look at those two.
I know. They're probably like, it's a common name.
That's probably most people listening, like, chill out, guys.
Yeah, they're like nothing special here. But
It
no,
didn't
so
used
like
to be.
I know, true. That's the truth. That's the truth. But it's
Yeah.
it's interesting. So like I will like sing like Elvis Presley songs to her.
Oh my
Um
God, I love that.
Yeah, so like that's like my big like that's my thing. So like sometimes I'll hear certain songs or like, you know, have certain memories of him and be like, wow, like man, and it feels like it was so long ago, yet it also sometimes feels like wasn't it just like the
Mm-hmm.
other day? So it's like for those of
Yes.
you who have lost a loved one, like you know that feeling where it's like time is so relative when it comes to loss, right?
Yeah.
Um but yeah, like it's very interesting. And I think that, I was already like emotionally dealing with loss because of fertility that we were going through and having gone through a chemical
Mm-hmm.
pregnancy. And I just think that there were certain things like I thought that I understood it. I'm still learning about it more and more and like on a deeper level as obviously like I age, I have different life experiences, etc. But yeah, like those triggers definitely come up. I don't know if I cry as much about
For
it
sure.
sometimes, but sometimes it just hits me a certain
Yeah.
way and maybe I do need to release some tears. And to be really
Mm-hmm.
honest, like I think that like even recently, I know I discussed on the most recent podcast that like my low was us, um, the one of the therapy dogs at our practice
Yes.
passing, which rest in power, little Sammy, we loved you so
Mm.
much. But it brought up so many emotions for me when it like about Minnie and
Yeah.
Max. Like it was
Yeah.
like I feel for my clinician, Camden. She's a phenomenal human being. She's so brave. And but I remember those feelings after it happened, and so I can imagine the levels of what she's maybe feeling, right? But yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
definitely have those triggers. What about for you?
Um, there's a couple. I mean, there's a few. I mean, I also feel like I try to remember all the moments. So as time goes on, I try to think about all the moments so that I don't lose them. Um, so if like an Aerosmith song comes on, or I mean, he used to listen to so many great old jams and the
Yeah,
Beatles. He loved the Beatles. I mean, classic rock,
totally, totally.
jazz music. I remember, and the beach. So down, we have a family beach house, and when my son was younger, it was right when we got it as a family. He would come down. He came down probably 2 or 3 summers. It was always around my birthday, which
Hmm.
is this week. So ironically, there's always something that happens at the beach that reminds me of him. I think it was one of the first couple summers after he passed. We went to a bar, a beach bar, sorry. in the sand where we went with my dad. And I remember like we were napping. My son was napping in the stroller and we went to get a drink
You
with
were
my
drinking.
dad. I was drinking and napping. So we went to this beach bar, my husband and I, and a couple years after he passed, and they hadn't had live music there before. And we were sitting, and all of a sudden, a live band started playing. And what did they start playing? They started playing jazz music, which was my dad's favorite. And that I just started crying right at the bar. I mean, I had my sunglasses on and we were outside. I was like, and
Yeah.
it's just like those little triggers, but it also, as emotional as it is, it also gives me some peace and reminds me
Yeah.
that he's here. He
Totally.
knows, he's watching, like it's all okay.
Totally.
Um, and there's lots of different other things. One more thing that I've seen recently where it's little glimmers of a rainbow in the sky, and
Mm.
it won't even be like after a storm. It'll be just randomly where you'll see, and you have to see it with your sunglasses. It'll be off the cusp of a cloud, and you'll see a rainbow. And it's usually always when I'm having like a stressful moment, whether it's with the kids or it's in my job. And it's just like his reminder that it's going to be okay. Because the days leading up to his passing, when I would go to the hospital, there were rainbows everywhere. It was after storms, but it was rainbows. And I remember showing him and
Okay.
being like, Dad, look at this, in the hospital. Like, look at that rainbow I saw as I came here. So, it's just those little pieces that I try to hold on to. And if I see it, like you said, like I don't always get super emotional anymore. I'll have my moments, but it's and I don't think it's like, we're not over it as like people would say
Yeah.
or used to say. It's living with it, right? And being at peace with it, you know,
Yeah. I agree with that.
that,
I think that also, like, looking at it from like that testing perspective too, and like what are the coping strategies, and everyone copes
yeah,
so differently. Like, I want to make this so clear to anyone, like ourselves, our listeners, whoever comes across this podcast, that like grief is it's a journey. There are times
yeah,
that it's like more present to us and we are more aware of it. And then there are other times where it's kind of in the background. And I think that a lot of people will come to me, and I experienced it myself with like some shame of like, I'm supposed to always be feeling a certain way or grieving a certain way. And like,
yes.
that's not true. It's just not
Mm-hmm.
true, right? From a therapist perspective, from another human being perspective, everyone has their own, right, quote unquote, testing that they do, finding the different support systems, the different
Mm-hmm.
coping strategies. Some people turn towards like mediums, some people turn towards faith, people turn towards all different things, which, like, it was very interesting. I was actually just sharing with someone that they were like, oh, yeah, would you ever talk to a medium? And I was like, it's not my jam, and I'll tell you why. I think for me, I don't know about you, but I was going to say, like, I think growing up Italian, they would sometimes put, my parents put the fear of God into being like, don't mess with anything. And I was just like, you're right.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to mess with anything spiritually. Don't you worry. Like, I was the one who was like at a sleepover being like, no, don't pull out anything creepy,
Don't do the Ouija
Yeah,
board.
don't do the
No.
Ouija board. Don't do it.
I
I
hated
don't want
that
to
stuff.
communicate with Abraham Lincoln. Like, don't do it.
Or the doll in the closet, one of the
Yes,
two.
forget it. Forget it. But I think like everyone, and we all cope so differently, separately, outwardly, internally.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing though is finding some type of a coping mechanism, right? A
Mm-hmm.
way to really be able to honor and acknowledge, right? To memorialize, um to really create space to feel your certain emotions. It's very interesting that you said like you went, I think you said, back to work after like a few days after your father's services. I
Hmm.
forced myself to take off 2 weeks because I
Good for you.
knew that I would have gone back. I actually knew that I would have gone back like you,
Hmm.
and that would not have been good for my clients. I honestly, like,
Yeah.
I know that now. It would not have been good if I did not create space. And let me tell you, I was stir crazy. It was not a good thing. I think if I was probably not in the profession that I am in, I probably would have gone back, maybe a little bit earlier. But I think I truly needed to give myself that time. And that's also like, kind of that
Absolutely.
2 week point. People stop checking in, people stop calling, they get back into their own lives. And that was why I
Yes.
was actually so grateful to have gone through this with a sibling. And you obviously have two siblings, but to go
Hmm.
through this with someone else and not just
Yeah.
be in it by myself. I mean, of course, like I'm really discrediting my husband. He was there, he was awesome, but
Yes.
it was such a different experience than like me and my
Yes.
sister going through it. And I'm like
Of
forever
course.
grateful for that.
Yeah, it's a different connection, it's your sister, right?
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely the same. Like I don't know what I would do without my brother and my sister to this day, of course. I
Mm,
mean, they're on my speed dial like every day.
yeah.
Um, and we were there, through the roughest parts of seeing my dad. So there is such a level of connection, even more so because of that. And, uh, we'll even talk about, you know, the last memories we had with my dad in the hospital. I mean, as hard as it was, they're hilarious, okay? Me, I will laugh all day, every day. If you think you're funny, like come to me. I will make you feel really good because all I
Yeah,
do
she
is
makes me
laugh.
feel like I'm a true comedian. She really builds my confidence up whenever I'm like saying something. She's a good laugher.
Thank you. Well, my brother and sister are freaking hilarious. And, that's like, they brought the humor, like my sister especially, they brought the humor in during those last days. And
Mm.
I mean, I'm talking, she would play Beyonce, and we have a video of my dad, in his gown, just like shaking it and singing, singing to Beyonce. And it
Oh
was
my
the
gosh, I love
best, and
that.
like, I'm glad we took those pictures and videos, even though it was the darkest of times. We have those little glimpse of hope and joy, and making him laugh when all the stuff around him was really, really hard. So, we made the most out of what was going on at the time. We kind of had set up camp in the in the hotel room. It was like a hotel room in the hospital room. And we watched, Austin Powers and all that, like all three of us and my dad just hanging out. So it kind of took away the reality of it all. So those memories with my siblings are really really something. And now, I mean, we take all of that and try to live our lives in and remember and honor him, especially through the things that we do. Like one of our coping, at least for me especially, one of my coping mechanisms or processes to learn to live with the grief was definitely through health and fitness.
Yeah.
It really, like, exercise really, even though it's, that physical component, it
Yeah.
really plays a huge mental component. And, you know, working out solely each day kind of just helped me to, I mean, I even remember crying in the middle of workouts because you'd have those moments, the words that the trainer would say to you, and you're just like, oh my God. And it just hits you, and it's a moment of, your sadness, but then it's also a moment of growth, right?
Yeah.
Physically and
Yeah.
mentally, and just learning to work through the um, emotions and
Yeah.
get stronger each day. I mean, it's a process, like we said, it's a process, and it's a lifelong journey, like you said.
Yeah.
um it's something that I don't think will ever go away, right? I
No.
don't. And I heard somebody, sorry, I heard somebody or read something on Instagram too of a grief account, right? Where it's like grief is just showing how much love you had for that loved one, right? Could
Absolutely.
you agree with that? Yeah.
Oh, 1,000%. 1,000%. And I
Yeah.
think that, like, I don't know about you, but I feel like this also has given me a different perspective of how I also then explain like death when it comes to like my daughter, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
like when we talk to her about, like, oh, this person has passed. And like, these are conversations that I don't think my parents, when I was growing up, like, ever really had. Even though, like, to be completely honest, like, I remember at young ages, and I don't know if it was just our generation, like, I definitely went to like open casket wakes. Like, there was like
Yes.
no shielding, right? Like, there really was
No.
no shielding. And I
Mm-hmm.
think in some ways it was good. It was freaky, but it was good. But I remember, actually, it's a friend of mine who had lost her son. Um, he was, I believe, born sleeping at, I want to say,
Oh,
either 27 or 37 weeks. I can't remember,
oh
but
my
they had
gosh.
spent some time. Her husband was stationed in the military, and they had spent some time in Japan. And I remember her saying something really profound. And she said, like, I remember saying to her, how are you so resilient? Like, just as a therapist, like, I remember saying that to her, and she was like, being around like the Japanese culture, it gave us a different perspective around death and grief. And like, I thought it was really amazing and cool that here she took this devastating situation and was like, how do I now apply something that gives me peace or gives me a calm or, helps me then to share that with my future children,
Yeah.
and not to be scared of it. And I think that that's like a huge thing. And so, like, even my husband and I now, we will talk openly, like, yep, they died. And because we identify our higher power as God and heaven, and we
Mm-hmm.
were like, oh, they went to heaven, right? And so, like, sometimes our daughter will ask follow-up questions and then sometimes not, but I think it's being transparent, especially as a
Yeah.
therapist. Transparency is key, right? Because when we're
Yeah,
not clear, then we can confuse.
for sure. I absolutely agree. I've done the same thing with my kids. Relate um, God and heaven. We talk about those things. And, as you said too, like you talk about, pop up with Paige and, you want them to know who he was. And same thing, like, you know, and I feel like that is also such an honor to whether it's our dads or, Max and Minnie or any other loved one that we have lost. Like, I feel like it's an honor to them. But I think speaking about that with our kids is so important too. Like I have pictures of him on the fridge, like, and I'm grateful that he also had Tyler. He had a grandchild. So, and we were able to experience that. So I have pictures, of him and I and my husband, and then also with Tyler. But it's we'll talk about and saying it to Isabella is that was a little trickier because she never met him, but seeing the pictures and just constantly talking about it and making that connection, she talks about now she knows who he is and now
Yeah.
she can talk about him too, you know. And I don't know if this has ever happened too, but she'll randomly say his name, like just bring him up just randomly. Like it just happens. And it's just, again, that just feeling of, okay, maybe he's, here.
Yeah.
But, and if I think too, talking about that process of, somebody passing away
Sure.
and, or saying they died, and now they're in heaven, is important, because you always want to shield your kids too, but you also don't want to completely have them be thrown off when something like that does happen in with them. I remember my son had some moments too where it was a couple years ago in school, after school, sometimes or on the weekends, he would just randomly say, that he missed him and he would be upset. And, like you said too, it's everybody processes it in different ways, and it happens when you least expect it.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
was definitely hard as a parent. Like, have you ever experienced that as a therapist too, where you're trying to navigate that with a child, or have you ever heard, like, I mean, that was tough
Yeah,
too.
I mean, I personally don't work with children, but I will
Yeah.
say that my clinicians who we do case consultations with, will absolutely say, like, how do I navigate this, right? And like, we have children who come to us who have had extremely traumatic situations and,
Yeah.
losses of family members, and it's always kind of meeting them where they're at. And so if it's like missing them, then it's honoring and acknowledging that, like, okay, like it's
Right.
great to miss them, right? That really just speaks, just like you said before, to the love that you had for that person and still have for them. That doesn't go away, right? Like that never
Yeah.
leaves us.
Right.
But we cope with it differently, or we kind of channel that love into different areas when we can't give it directly to them, right? And so, um, yeah, I mean, we see it a lot at the practice, and we hold space for
Yeah.
those littles because it's hard to it's confusing, it's hard, but it's
Yes.
also so important, right? To just like
Be in
just
that moment.
yeah, be in that moment for sure. Um,
Mm-hmm.
See, we told you all, even though we laugh, it was a serious conversation today,
It
right? Like
was. Mm-hmm.
today was more serious. But you know what? Like, I think because you and I have talked about like our fertility and definitely the layers of grief that we've experienced there, it makes a lot of sense for us to talk about some of the other grief experiences and losses, and um,
Yeah.
what continues to mold us and helps us evolve. And so, like, if I can give like a little bit of like a mindfulness moment for all of us, right, before we get to our
Yes.
highs and our lows of the week, I would just want to say that, like, whatever you're feeling right now, right, like just placing your hand on your heart and breathing into that. And if there's someone that you're thinking of, whether that is a person you've lost on an emotional level or a physical level, just holding the love that you have for them in your heart right now, breathing that in, breathing that out, and knowing that you are not alone, knowing that that loved one always leaves their mark with us. And we can just take those quiet moments. I always say, like, when you have those quiet moments, take it to just spend a little bit of time with them.
I love that. I did that exercise
Mm,
as you did it, as you
I
said
know. I saw you. Highs and lows. What are your
it.
highs and your lows?
Highs and lows. Okay. Highs, definitely enjoying the last bits of summer. It is officially August, and so my summer is coming to an end as a
Oh,
teacher. I
oh,
know.
oh
So I am
no.
enjoying the we are enjoying this last week down by the shore. So I'm trying to savor it all in. And reading, I'm reading a lot more. So I'm trying to finish two books before it's time to go back to the
Oh, good.
classroom.
Good for you.
Yes. Thank you. And that would bring me to my low. My low would be that it is August, and August is a curse word for teachers.
I know. I always say that, like, when my teacher friends go back to school, it's like crickets. Like no one responds. Thank God we're doing this podcast with each other. I'll actually be able to see and spend time with your beautifuless at least
Right? I
once a week.
know.
But still, like, you
It's
guys go
true.
MIA, and I just expect it.
It's
I expect it.
very true.
It's so true.
Thank you.
It
Thank
is.
you for
It
your
is.
support.
Yes. No beef here. I was gonna say,
Your
my
highs
high.
and
Oh,
lows?
okay. My high was like, getting things off of my checklist today. I think like today, especially, like I
Yes.
felt very productive today. Even though like I was actually sharing with Simona earlier that I was like, ooh, could be hormonal, could be just like adjustments, could be like weather. I'm very like sensitive to the weather. And even though like, even with like the thickness of the air, it can just
Oh
sometimes
yeah.
feel like very like heavy, right? And so
Yeah.
like I felt like a little dip today, right? And
Meh.
so
Yep.
I would say that being productive was very important for my emotional health. And then I would say
Good.
that my low is okay, this is like a backhanded low. This is like a funny kind of low, but
Can't
I
wait.
have been on a chocolate covered pretzel craze
Oh,
recently.
yum. Wait, that's a low. Why?
Carluzzi's. That's the grocery store. I'm like, Carluzzi's, please put your toffee chocolate covered pretzels away from me. Hello, my name is Vicki, and I am a chocolate covered pretzel addict. I apologize now, but like, oh my goodness. And that is my low. I cannot say no. I know that that is a silly low for this
Okay.
week, guys, but like, oh,
No.
I'm gonna go
God,
shove
chocolate covered
a
pretzels.
handful in my mouth after this. What are you talking about?
I'm telling you, I think it's something with the moon or this retro Mercury, whatever you call
Oh
it,
my gosh, you're
retrograde.
butchering it. You're butchering it over
Totally
there.
butchering. What is it? What is it
Mercury's in
called? Mercury retro.
retrograde. Mercury's. You know what's so funny though is
Oh
like
my
I'm like, oh
God.
no, oh no, I'll be like, no, 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 like no, like like medium Ouija board, any of that type of stuff, and then I'm like, oh, but my horoscope is a Pisces with Venus rising moon or whatever.
100%. Yes.
Right,
Believe in
which
all
is
that shit.
hysterical to me. It was just hysterical, but
Oh, what? See, at least we ended on a high note. We're
yes,
laughing.
that's our
So,
high,
very
guys.
deep
That's our high.
conversation, but
Deep.
we hope you enjoy this episode.
Yes,
Thank
and
you for
give
being
our whole
here.
little spiel there because you're so good at it. Give our little ending
Our
spiel.
whole little spiel, yes. So, thank you so much for being here, guys. And if you haven't followed us yet on Instagram, we are unfertile_2_unfiltered_pod. And go give us a follow. We are officially over 100 followers and over 100
Thank you, thank
downloads.
you.
Yay! Yay! So thank you so much for being
Thank you,
here
guys.
and listening. And don't forget to head to our show notes. We have our Instagram handles, our websites, and also we would love a review. Thank you so much, and we look forward to the next one.